Hello, we're joined by Lorne Lanning this afternoon. We're going to be chatting about Abe's Oddysee, new and tasty. We're going to be talking about industry stuff. Dan's asked me to call this a fireside chat with Lorne Lanning, but there's no fire.
There's no fire.
So it's just chat.
It's just steamy.
Alright, so Lorne is the co-founder of Oddworld Inhabitants. You're going to have to stop me if I say something wrong. The creator of the Oddysee series.
Yes.
And we're here talking specifically today about your new game.
New and tasty.
New and not new? That's my first question.
Yeah. So it's so we looked at this, and first of all, I just want to back up and go, how did we come to decide to make this? Yes. And the beauty of today is that you can actually be in touch with your audience. Like, you can actually listen to your audience. And that was always really challenging at retail, right? We didn't really know who was buying the games. It's not tracked. Forums, I mean, when we founded Oddworld, most people still didn't know what www meant, right? So unless you were BioWare, like really clever in harnessing forums and stuff, and we weren't, you didn't know. But now you have a better idea, and now you try to facilitate, Facebook, your own page, your Twitter account, where you're trying to pull people together. And the biggest value in that is you're able to stimulate awareness, but really you're able to hear back, you're able to get feedback, and you're able to start doing things like polling. So we started polling, and people were like, "We want new Oddworld. We want new Oddworld." And we had done the HD remake of Stranger, and then we did Stranger Vita, and that was going well, and it was helping the relationship develop between Jaw in the UK and us here in the States. And with each of those successes, we're basically putting money in the bank and financing new content. And so they're going, "We want brand new content." And we're like, "We can't really afford it, But if we could do really remake a game, then we're not taking all the overhead of designing something completely new and fresh and innovative that is really you're not going to do for a couple $1 million. And in my opinion, it's just there's a certain expectation of what Oddworld quality should be: animation, visuals, care, love, craft, humor, and it's expensive. But we asked the audience. We said, well, if we could do it like one of these 6 things, which would you rather it be? And they all went back to redo Abe's Oddysee. We want to see more of that platforming, but really, knock it out. Do a great job.
So you're revisiting the first game in the series.
Yes.
Complete visual overhaul. What about content?
Yeah. Content.
Any new content?
It's all new.
It's all new.
Yeah. I mean, what we did was we looked at it like Time Machine, the movie, right? And we were looking at movies, and we're going, why do they remake the script? Why do they rewrite the great original script? And why don't they just keep that script and reshoot it with 21st century technology? And they don't, right? So we get a crappier Time Machine than the original, is my opinion, Time Machine being one of my favorite movies. And we were looking at that as a model, and we go, what if we took the template of the design of Abe's Oddysee? We have a game, it ramps well, it has a lot of things in there. What if we stick to that template, and then we enhance it completely? We'd make it full 3D. We get into dynamic lighting, we get into physics, we do these things. We make it continuous scrolling, not flip screen. What if we do that, and then we enhance that experience rather than just trying to HD up the old game? And that's what we started focusing on. So we started on one engine, and then we switched over to Unity. And that's been actually quite an interesting experience in a positive way. Unity's been really great. But we looked at that and said, okay, now how do we make this? What was the flaws in Abe? What did we learn from Exodus? What did we learn from Munch? What did we learn from doing these games? How do we bring those learns back into the original Abe's Oddysee in a new way, on new tech, and fully dynamic lighting, fully live? And how do we sort of keep the charm and character of the original and enhance it all and make it play better and make it more accessible and still have an insanely hard mode for those people who are like, I want classic play, and that's there. So now we have difficulty levels. We have it where the thing that was challenging about Abe's Oddysee in the beginning was a lot of people couldn't play it, right? It was too hard.
Yeah, I never completed it.
Sorry about that.
Stuck.
Yeah, sorry about that. And
you give me an easy mode this time.
Yeah, we have an easy mode. Yeah, we do. And so, it was a question of okay, now how do we dial this? It's no longer a bitmap game. Now it's running in full dynamic 3D. How do we dial this so that it's more accessible to new players, but people who still want to have that hardcore achievement, that's dialed in as well. And so I think we're accommodating that pretty well. But ultimately, the audience is going to decide. The audience is going to decide if we deserve to keep making games or not. Because basically we said we're not playing the old publisher game anymore. It didn't really work out for us in the ways that we wanted. That was the case for lots and lots of developers. You guys have been interviewing people for years. You know how it's been. And
well, this is a subject that's close to your heart, right?
Bitching and moaning.
Well, specifically about self-publishing on consoles.
Yeah, big time, big time. And we wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for Steam, right? Steam allowed us to get the original Abe games back up, available to audience, and allowed us to start earning, so we could start reinvesting. And then we were like micro steps up. So like, okay, can we bring the Oddbox over and have it play on PC? Because it was originally Munch and Stranger were just Xbox games. Okay, can we take Stranger and res them up? Each time the investment was a little more. Jaw as a studio got to grow. It got to employ more people. It's still a humble studio at under 20 people. They work really hard. But it allowed us to sort of take measured steps and try to be, we used to go out and say, we need $10 million for this game. And someone would pay for it, and we're not asking anymore, so we need to pay for it, And as a result, it's really, our commitment to quality is huge in this because we believe it's the only way we're going to keep on building games. And the audience has been responding very favorably to the games we've been releasing, to the attention to detail. We've had some we've had some problems at different times, but
yeah. So development stretched on longer than you initially imagined.
Absolutely,
right?
I wish it shipped a while ago. There's no doubt. I mean, people are giving us a hard time for not giving a specific release date, but the fact is,
you can tell us now. It's fine.
The fact, yeah, exactly.
You can fix that.
In the trailer, you'll see it says coming soon. But here's the thing: you'll forgive us for taking a little longer to build the game. You're not going to forgive us for shipping a crappy game.
Right.
And that's the cold hard truth of it. And I wish we could say on this date we're going to ship, but the fact is, a game feeling great to play and having the charm and humor and the craftsmanship that we want is more important than us hitting a specific date. We don't have a partner that has a public company that says if it's not by Christmas we're dead. We see when that happens, right? Battlefield, right? Like when I look at Battlefield, the game is so great. Like those people spent a ton of time trying to make an incredible experience, and then someone decided to ship that thing early for one reason, because they cared more about shareholders than they did about their customers. That's it. That's it. And while we every week we take longer, it costs more money. But we feel like if we ship something subpar today, especially if we're taking bolder initiatives like we are with New and Tasty, if we ship subpar, the audience is going to kill us. The audience is ultimately going to decide if we're worth it or not, if we should keep on building games. Today, they'll chew you up in 2 seconds on the internet, right? Just slip on one saying and you're dead. But so far, that relationship has been really good with the audience. And I think that because I think the Oddworld brand still has this commitment to quality. We might not be releasing new IP as fast as people would like. Well, let me say, we're not releasing new IP as fast as people would like, but we want to pay for it ourselves so we can continue to focus on what we think is important. And in the traditional publisher relationships, that got increasingly harder to do.
So one of the big focuses of GDC for Microsoft this year is the Idea Xbox program.
Yeah.
They're going to announce a whole bunch of stuff. By the time this video comes up, everyone will know the games that are on there.
Yeah.
You were quite vocal when that didn't exist. What do you make of their approach now?
I think they've made huge headway, and this is why you haven't seen me complaining recently, because A, no one's probably listening, but B, I just haven't been, and that's kind of unique. But
are you talking to them?
The reason is, yes. And I think they got the right guy in there to do the job, and that's Chris Charler, right? And I think I think what you needed is you need less business people and you need more development people, right? Like this is one of the things that happened at Sony, Look, Cerny's designing the hardware, not Kutaragi, right? Where it's all engineering centric and then let the development community figure out. You got a guy who now has extensive chops in development.
We chatted with him the other night, we had a beer with him, and he was saying exactly that. It was all just about making it as easy as possible for developers.
Yeah, and it's making a huge difference.
But what I've never quite grasped about that angle is, what were people doing before? Why would you ever make it anything other than easy for developers?
Because you just didn't give a shit.
Right, okay.
Period.
Right.
I mean, I was never a fan of Kutaragi. If you go back in time, I was vocal on the PS2.
No.
Other people, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but true. And but the reason was very simple. That as an independent developer, you have to go out and you have to predict what your game is going to cost.
Right.
Now, on a dev station that you couldn't predict on, that meant every dollar you went over, another pound is coming out of your hide in one way or another. Right. The deal gets worse for you.
Right.
And so when you're finding out, like, you know, yeah, I wish we were first party. Yeah, I wish someone was fueling it like they were, you know, Naughty Dog or something. But we weren't. So we're out there borrowing money against something that we can't figure out what it's going to cost. And we're dealing with it at that level. And then when you would read comments from the creator that goes, well, this is good for the industry because it'll shake out the smart guys from the not smart guys. What that showed was a massive gap of ignorance of what the developers have to deal with. Right? Period. Now, Phil Harrison knew, different people knew, and they were trying to make it better, but it's got to come from the hardware on up. And this round with Sony, I think they just made brilliant decisions in who they hired. Adam Boyes brought a new way of thinking, and you've got, I think, a lot of the best people there through the years have actually risen to the top. You know, now you got Kaz running the whole show, right? Which means, I remember in the beginning, PlayStation was this odd stepchild that the music business part, I remember having dinner with the vice president of the music business back before the PlayStation launch. He goes, that's going to be a joke. And I said, you watch, it's not going to be.
Now it's the thing keeping them afloat.
Now it's the thing keeping them afloat. And so, you know, they made a lot of headway, they broke in, but now I think they've really dialed in an understanding of what's important for developers. Why does that get us better games? Better games gets us better sales, and let's be number one. And so they made all the right decisions, I think, out of the gate this time in who they chose to design it and who's representing it and who's representing third party. Like, a lot of great decisions there. So nothing but applause, right? On Microsoft's side, when we hit E3, the messaging was not good. And it wasn't promising for independent developers. So the way I saw that immediately was, look, let's get past this sort of Cold War Berlin walls of gaming where you're going to have 70 million gamers behind your wall. And for instance, you know how many units of Stranger and Munch we sold on 360, right? 0. Because they wouldn't allow us on the system. So it's like, okay, so all those games now, we can't be there for whatever convoluted bullshit reasons, and they were, that were keeping us from being there. After I'd be told, yes, you can be on the system, and then at day 99, they go, oh, look, you released on PlayStation. Sorry, that's against our rules that we just made up yesterday. It's like, get real, right? And it makes you not like them, right? But Microsoft's not going away. And they've got a huge arsenal, and the Xbox is one of their, like, shining moments today in the marketplace. Look at their performance on online, look at their performances in other sectors, they're all dropping. And but the Xbox is like, I think, a sort of crown prince within their stable of overall products. But the way that was being approached as a business model was not healthy for the indie community, and I felt it wasn't healthy for Microsoft. It was just bad all the way around. So as independent developers, I feel like it's kind of us to stand up and say, look, we have to deal with the back end of this or be excluded. Now, we got excluded on last gen, and you're going to, portion away 70 million gamers again behind your little wall, and you're going to say, maybe we'll let you on there, maybe we won't, regardless of how high quality your games are. It's just like, you know, enough of that. So if being vocal could help to, to adjust the course of that huge ship that is Microsoft, then that's good for Microsoft and it's good for gamers. So what do you have to lose when you're already cut out, right? So we were already cut out of last gen. And we had the games. We wanted to get them up there. We begged them to be on there. Wouldn't allow it. So if they're going to do it again, then ding them as much as you can, rationally, objectively, and fairly, right? And I don't think we were saying anything hot topic as much as this is a problem, this is the reasons why. What I think they did that was really good is that they about-faced very quickly, and I think it was surprising based on the inertia of how a company like that makes decisions. You know, this is an enormous entity with a lot riding on it, and very sort of pressured management on down. You know, if you knew how Ballmer was, if you know, this is a high pressure place. And you also knew that there's a lot of people there. You know, now you got Phil Harrison there, you got Phil Spencer, you got a number of people across the board. Now you got Charla in charge of the ID.
Witten left last night, though. What's your reaction to that, Mark Witten?
I didn't know Mark.
Oh, you don't?
Well,
okay.
So I don't really. What was his role? Oh,
I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
They've all got ridiculous job titles that I can't quite remember. Yeah. But I know that
he's been there. The third world.
He's been there since 2000. He helped launch every single one of the consoles.
Yeah.
He helped develop Xbox Live. He's been instrumental in it.
Well, I don't know. Where did he go?
Sonos.
Interesting. So I don't really have much of personal insight there.
Fair enough.
But
so your meetings with them now, yeah. Is it a done deal?
It's not a done deal.
New and Tasty coming to Xbox?
It's not a done deal, but I think we'll work it out.
Right.
And
how awkward was it after you being so outspoken?
Well, it's kind of.
I imagine that meeting was a bit frosty at first.
No, because I know Charla.
Okay.
And I want to see him succeed.
All right.
And there's people there. Like, this is what I was going to say: is there are a lot of smart people at the organization in the trench that knew these were the wrong decisions to be launching this box, right? The guy who made those decisions, he's running Zynga now, right? But these were the wrong decisions, and a lot of people there knew it. And if you knew, like, I have a love. I mean, it might have been vocal, but I have a love for Xbox. Being in the beginning, launching the machine, going around the world, putting up with the shit that we put up with when we couldn't even talk about the titles because people were so pissed off of the price point.
Right.
I mean, we did a lot to try and get that out there and convince developers that this was a good box to develop for. So there is a soft spot for Xbox, and that's where it felt particularly stung to not be allowed on the 360 indie game, selling directly. And it was like, well, there's nothing to lose then by criticizing bad policies. And that's what we did. And, but we weren't alone, right? We helped maybe open the gate a little bit, but we weren't alone. And as a result, I'm surprised at how quickly they about-faced and really, for whatever reasons, they were making more of the right decisions, I feel, that was better for the health of the game industry. And like I was saying, they're not going to go away. Right, so they're going to succeed. They're going to capture a significant amount of gamers, but is it a way that makes everyone better? And that's what I think is the most important, personally. So, as we start talking to Charla and having those discussions, they go really smoothly. But we still have there's only one hang up right now, and it's the parity issue.
Yeah.
And
they've been not clear about that at all, right? So just to explain what we're talking about,
yeah.
They, as far as I understand it, they demand release date parity with across platforms, right? If it's come out on another platform before, they won't touch it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's bad for the industry. And the reason that's bad is because it's okay to say that for AAA titles that you're going to publish, that you're going to invest tons of money in, and you say we want exclusivity. Totally understandable, that have huge marketing budgets. But now we're dealing with the indie scene. And the indie scene is, we just don't have the manpower, right? So as manpower, we go, and this is what I said to Chris. I go, Chris, here's our concern. They know, to be on the stage at Sony asked for at E3, they said, look, would you like to be on the stage? We're like, are you kidding? Thank you, where do we line up? And they said, but all that we need is just a 30-day window on the platforms, Sony platforms, and then we'll have you on the stage. And we're like, wonderful. And then the rest of the clauses are just nothing. They're easy. They want to see good games, and they don't really care about exclusivity. But if they're going to put you on the stage at E3, you can understand, right? It's a highlighted moment. Then on the other side, we'd say, well, it needs to be a simultaneous release. And we're like, well, we're indies. We got 3 programmers on this. And here's the thing. When we develop for Xbox One, we want to make sure that the controls are great. We want to make sure that we want to make sure it's great, not it's on time. Because this policy right now is telling people we care more about the shipping date against our competitor than we do for quality games to our audience. That's the in-between-the-lines message, because that's the reality. If we have to ship a subpar game just to get on that platform so we can get some sales, that's not the positive reinforcement that should be happening. And I think that, the latest is said it was on a case-by-case basis. And, but I think ultimately they'll shift off that, because I think they're going to miss a lot of good titles, because the indie community just really doesn't have the resources. If you're a publisher, you can go, we're throwing 5 more programmers at it. If you're us, you can't do that. I mean, we're already over budget, right? And it hurts. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's got to be a good game. And so we care about good first rather than date. And I think that it's one of those last policies where my prediction is that Microsoft will move from it. I think there's a lot of resistance to it, at this phase, but I think they will move because I think what'll happen, regardless of how soon, what'll happen is we're going to see some great ones on PlayStation that don't make it over because they don't make the window. And that's not, I don't think the audience of Xbox One buyers, I don't think that's what they want. And so I think there will be pressure from the user community to adjust the policy, and I think there will be a lot of pressure from the development community to adjust it. And I think ultimately it's wise for them to adjust it, but I have to commend the distance that they've traveled from E3 to now.
Yeah. Huge
shift, better for everybody. And I think that that last one is another one, but that will be better for everybody. In the meantime, we're still, where we have caution is, and this is our problem, is if we start investing in that conversion, in that platform, how do we know that investment doesn't get told, oh, too late, no, can't release? That's a risk we can't afford to take. So we want that risk nullified. We want it gone. And we want to say, look, and Charla understands, if I tell Chris, I go, Chris, at day 31, I'm not sure the controls are going to be great on the Xbox, but I don't want to release until they are. And he's like, because he's a developer, he totally understands that. But he's one guy in a huge organization. So I think the lobbying is happening internally to make what I think will be healthier decisions for everyone. And in the meantime, you know, it's tough to start making the commitment of resources that for us, you know, we're just little guys. We're self-financed. We got a couple $1 million into this title, and then all the amortization of assets alone. It's not easy to do that. And we just want to guarantee that if we do that, and we're obviously making commitments to quality in the games that we deliver, we want to make sure it plays primo on your platform, but we don't want to get burned holding an investment that we weren't able to release. And it's really that simple. And I think we'll work it out. But I think, you know, the gears turn slowly in a big, massive organization.
What represents success for New and Tasty, and what will it allow you to do? Like, what's the roadmap?
If we can sell 250,000 units,
right,
we get to go into the next product.
Okay.
You know, we make our money back and it refinances.
And do you know what that is? Do you know what that is, the next product? Have you got it all lined up?
So we already polled the audience, and we said, you know, what was the next thing you'd like to see? And to my surprise, the next thing they said is do it again with the Exodus. Like, if you do a good job with Oddysee, do it again with Exodus, and we'd love to see that. And I was very surprised by that. I was very surprised they said redo Oddysee. Like, a lot of this is, if I were making these decisions in a vacuum, like we were 10 years ago, where you're totally guessing what you think the audience is going to like, and you're dealing with retail as an added pressure, right? I would be like, there's no way. It's just an old game. That's it. Old games are gone, and they want all new stuff, and if it's not AAA, you're dead.
But wait, if you sell 2 million, you'll make a new one, right?
If we sell 500,000, we'll build a new IP.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, a brand new.
Brand new.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, you know...
so there you go. If you want new IP from Oddworld Inhabitants, get your money out.
You know, but because we're doing it ourselves now, we have more freedoms to do the things we think are important. We have less pressure to ship. I mean, the pressure to ship is primarily our own finances. And every week we take longer. I know there's people upset with us, like, you said it was coming, you know, I want that game. I'm like, I hear you.
Developers always say the game isn't finished when it's finished. It's when you run out of time or you run out of money, right?
Well, that's right.
You could fiddle with it forever.
That's right. And fortunately, what's happening is because there's life on digital, you know, those games are still selling. So some income still rolls in from the existing games that are on the shelf, still on the shelf, that help us to be able to travel a little further than if we just had one set budget. And it's not what you want to do. I mean, you want to spend less on the game. You want to ship the game earlier and spend less because that's life, you know, that's like basic economics. But it's got to be a good game. And this is like I was saying, like the audience is going to decide if we're making more games or not, right? And I think we've learned a lot of hard lessons. In particular, I think the game industry has been an immense sort of valley of hard knocks for me personally, and hard learning experiences. Each time you try to come out at least semi-winning, you know, where you can keep on building, that's winning, right?
If there's one thing I've learned from coming to GDC, this is like my third one, it's that everyone, even now, is still feeling their way around. Yeah. They're still trying to work out how to do this thing. Do you know what I mean? Even like down to the making of the games.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah,
it's the Wild West.
it's an incredibly fuzzy science.
Right.
Good games is like you can't buy a manual on how to buy a good game. I mean, when I started building games, there were no books on building games. There was no schools teaching games. And so we've come a long way, and we've come a long way with like third-party software. I think Unity is very surprising to me, and I think they have surprised me in how cooperative they've been. We've been wanting to push the rendering, we've been wanting to push the lighting, we've been wanting to push the animation fidelity, we've been finding bugs that other people weren't finding, we've been finding some things that maybe they could restructure slightly differently to optimize in different ways to get more dynamic lighting effects, and they've been incredibly responsive. So you see a company that's really dedicated to wanting to really, you know, they started in a way, Unity for example, where 18 months ago I was looking at it and going, I don't see it. I don't see why would we be using that technology. And then, 12 months ago, we made a complete shift over. It had come that far. And now today, I think with New and Tasty, Unity has another unique sort of notch look for it. And, the audience will decide if that's true or not. But it's surprising to see, the cooperation they've given us in helping to address what we felt were issues. And that's really rare. It's really rare. And knowing like how many customers they have to support and how they're doing this, I have a lot of confidence in that company that they're going to keep on doing great. But, those tools are enabling us to do it. Like when we built Stranger, when we built Munch, when we built Abe, we were building tools, engine,
from scratch,
and game on one budget. It was murder. It was really difficult. And we weren't the only ones. And that was pretty much standard par for the course. And now these things really help us get a leg up. So I think the pounds of value in the product are greater than the cost that we're putting into the product, and that's kind of our model now. Is great content at a great price, and but at the same time in the indie space, great price is considered. $19.99 is really high. It's like, wait a minute. The Academy Award every year for Best Motion Picture goes to like the best motion picture, not the best motion picture that came from a big published studio. Usually they're coming from the indie scene where you get better stories because the script has fewer hack jobs going through with a massive marketing department. It's why directors to prefer to do indies versus big blockbusters. And the big blockbusters don't win the Academy Awards.
There's a school, not a school of thought, there's a stat that says that if you're a movie studio, it's better to make one film that costs 300 million to make. Yeah. When I say it's less risky than to make three for 100 million each or 6 for 50 million each.
Yeah,
I think
there's a ratio there.
But how do you think that relates to games? Do you think it's the same? Obviously, you're making like AA games as opposed to AAA games.
Well, here's the big difference, right? Whether I go to see a movie at the theater that costs 300 million to make or 2 million to make, I'm still paying the same ticket price.
Yeah, but people are more likely to see the 300 million one.
It depends on what the movie was, right? I mean, it really does.
So, that's how it works.
So if you go $300 million movie in the making, it's probably got a $100 million marketing campaign, right? So by the time they've saturated every billboard and every bus stop and every television commercial with that thing, there's enough awareness out there. But let's look at some of the stinkers recently, right?
Oh yeah,
at $300 million.
People still go and see that crap though, even the really bad ones, just because it's omnipresent. Yeah. It's everywhere. It's on the billboard.
Which one just won, right? So what's the one? The girl? Her? What's it called?
Her. With
right?
thingy.
Did that win the Academy Award?
No, it was 12 Years a Slave.
Another indie.
Yeah.
Right? So more sort of attention to craftsmanship, to story, to heart and soul can be paid attention to in indie, whereas they're going, at $300 million, they're going, we need to shave off anything that might turn off any sector of our market. We need to maximize it. And what you get is a big homogenized product that I'm tired of seeing, quite frankly, So these new, monster movies come out, the new guys with capes come out, I'm just not interested. Like Superman, you can't get me to go see it. You're not going to drag me in to watch a guy with tights run around and fly. I just don't care anymore, especially if you're spending that much money. But a great film that focuses in on, unique pictures like a lot of, let's take the brother producers who did the Weinsteins. They're not doing $300 million movies, but they have a hell of a track record of successes. So the question is, how good is the quality of what you're delivering on a low budget? And so low budget certainly is riskier to do high quality, but people who really know what they're doing are doing it, and when they do, they're not going to make 300, 400 million back because they're not going to have the marketing to get that exposure. But they might triple the money of the investment made.
Right.
And I think that's the real ratio to pay attention to, right? And there is logic in it's safer to make one blockbuster than 5 smaller ones. This whole ratios, particularly in film, they're a different spectrum. But again, the audience is paying the same price for that product, not so in games. So what's happening in games is they expect that the less the money costs for development, the less they should pay for the product. Now that you have digital distribution, now that you have an indie self-published scene, what we have is we have a gap between what we consider indie and what we consider AAA. But really, there's going to be more and more AAA indie. Right? That's going to happen. I hope we're helping that initiative because as indie developers are more successful, even they might have done something really small to cut through and show the audience like, hey, we're worthy and we can do something new with gaming. And we've seen, we're seeing a fair amount of that over the last year, right? It's exciting stuff. But what's going to happen is with more and more success, they're going to build higher quality products. Like it's just going to happen naturally because they want to.
Plus it's easier now. You've already said, like using Unity, you can make something. It doesn't have to be pixel art. Indie games don't have to be pixel art anymore.
Right.
But anyway, I realised that I've kept you for a very long time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Give us the spiel. Give us the new and tasty spiel. What people should look out for when it's coming out.
Well, it's
how much
coming.
it costs.
So we've got. I mean, I think it's kind of unique in the indie space. I think The Witness will be kind of unique too in terms of money in, and so we've got cold cash. We've got a couple million into new and tasty. And then we were able to inherit about 2 to 3 million of assets from previous games, because we've archived all the way. We've been able to inherit learns from Abe's Exodus, from Munch's Oddysee, different health systems, etc., and bring them back into this game to make it what we feel is a more accessible, richer experience. One of the things I think is that we're finding that the more people are watching a game, then the funnier it gets, because we've got backseat drivers, right? Like Abe was designed from the beginning to be something. I looked at the television set as the center of the household entertainment, but the rest of the family was not that hip to someone playing games. There was like the automatic babysitter or whatever, but like watching someone play a POV shooter is not that exciting to watch. It's exciting to play, but it's not that entertaining to watch. We were always paying special attention to what about the observer who's watching someone play? Why it should be engaging for them too. It should be, even though they might not have their hands on a controller, you want to feel like, no, idiot, go light, don't do that, and sudden death and crazy shit happens. So in ours, we've been paying particular attention to how is the quality experience for the person in the controller, first and foremost. But then B, how is it for those observing? And we're starting to film reactions of groups of people playing because it's quite surprising. And one of the reasons is that in the beginning we had very limited memory for voices, for options, for all kinds of subtlety. Well, now that's not an issue. And so we're able to bring in a lot more voices, a lot more surprises, a lot more humor. Even though it's built on the same template of the original design, it's completely rebaked from ground zero up. And so I think it's funnier. This is my personal opinion. It plays more dynamically. I think it just looks in a whole different class in and of itself. And we've made it more accessible with different difficulty modes, and then we have like a classic mode that's getting back to, you're not going to want to play that mode.
No.
But it's just brutal, like one shot kills and all this stuff. So we wanted to make it more accessible, but at the same time, for the people who really liked the difficulty of it, we wanted that to be there as well. And that meant making it more dynamic on, difficulty level stuff. All these things were chores. Having quick save work perfectly, having you reboot like wherever you wanted, fast action. These things were really important to us. Visceral experience really important to us. But it should feel like you're playing a AAA experience. It shouldn't feel like you're getting something that came out of a garage that you go, well, for an indie it's not bad. Right. It should be like when we go to a movie. We don't care if it's an indie or a major. We care about a good story. We care about a good experience. Was it worth our money? And I think this middle tier of price point that's missing right now is going to get filled in, and I think we'll consider it AAA indie. Is what will become, I think, a common vernacular. I'm hearing some people start to speak to that today, and yet, we have this expectation that if it's a big publisher spending a lot of money, it can be $60 on the shelf, and you're like, wasn't that great a game, right? That should have been the $20 game. That should have been the $15 game, and retail. Look, 50% of the retail gross is going to the retailer. Right? 50% is going to someone who has nothing to do with building the games, is not bringing money back for you to build more games. You know, I mean, they're selling. I don't mean to oversimplify, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And I think that as we see that gap, middle gap fill in, we'll see that, you know, $29 for a really quality experience that someone else, as a publisher, might release as a physical product for $50 to $60 is a good value. Today, people are going, I don't get the value of $29 for an indie game. And I think that will change, but the products have to change it. If I'm wrong, the audience will let us know, right? Like, I have no illusions about the audience letting us know, and we're listening. But we think where we're targeting is reasonable. We think when people see it and start experiencing it, they'll feel like they got a great deal for the value. And like I said, if we're wrong, we're going to know really quick. And part of the beauty of being digital is we can respond faster.
Right.
You know, but we have to try and sort of have it at a good value, at a good price, and make sure it's a solid game. Making sure it's a solid game is what makes it more expensive. You know, it could have released earlier, but is that what we want as a brand? Is that what we think the customers are expecting? And we think they have higher expectations on our brand. And achieving that in an indie space with little money and fewer people is really hard. So this has been a massive labor of love. I myself am going on 2 months spent in the UK this past year. I'm going back right after the show. I'll be there for 2 weeks or however long it takes to really dial it in to where we feel really proud of what we're delivering. And like I said, but you know, ultimately the audience is going to decide.
All right. Well, look, best of luck. I hope you hit that 500,000.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
So we can get the new IP. And yeah, thanks for chatting to us in our Fireside chat that didn't have a fire.
Sorry about that.